Hello, welcome back to the study of the book, Discovering Your True Self, A Guide for the Journey. My name is Steve Langford. I'm the author of the book, and I've been your guide on the study of this book. And so we come to our final session of this study. We're part of that third section of the study in which we look at how life is different when we live out of the true self, when we move beyond the anxiety that drives the constructed self. I trust as we come to this last study that you have found the study to be meaningful and beneficial on your own spiritual journey. I pray that you felt the Spirit pulling you, leading you from into, so that you can move to a greater depth in your spirituality. As we come to this last session, I want to talk about being out of step. Perhaps this study is a word of warning. Because as we make this spiritual journey from into by means of the Spirit's transforming work, we move beyond the world's ways of thinking and living. You see, the constructed self is driven by anxiety. And it has been shaped by the culture. It is patterned after what society, the society's way of thinking, and it embodies the society's values. The constructed self is a merit-based self, an ego-based self that is manufactured through self-effort by conforming to the expectations and the rules and the laws. It lives out of a reward and punishment mentality. It is about achieving and accomplishing as we conform to and measure up to these expectations and rules. It is about a world of self-effort that engages in work and doing. It is driven by an us-them thinking, by either or black and white thinking that leads to a rigidity of thought that says I'm right and you're wrong. It leads to a rigidity of thought that creates emotional reactivity to life and to those things that challenges us. The constructed self is rooted in better than, less than thinking that treats others as scapegoats, that engages in being judgmental and criticalness and finding fault with others. But as we walk this spiritual journey, we'll discover that the Spirit leads us beyond this whole way of living. It moves us beyond anxiety into peace. It moves us beyond this merit-based approach to life, to living out of grace. It moves beyond rewards and punishments into grace and forgiveness. It moves beyond this effort to achieve and to measure up into a focus upon making progress and growing and developing. It moves beyond this us-them into which we see and embrace all people as beloved children of God. The Spirit moves us beyond this either-or, black and white, rigid thinking, into a spirit of humility in which we're confident in what we know, but we recognize that what we know is not the full truth, and so there's always that element of being teachable and open to learning that which someone else will bring from their own perspective. The Spirit moves us beyond this better than, less than way of thinking in which we are critical and judgmental of others and treat them as scapegoats. You see, the spiritual journey in which sets the true self free moves us beyond this whole way of thinking and living and relating. It takes place as we are transformed by the Spirit through the renewing of our minds as we learn spiritual truth, so that now our thinking is not shaped by the world's thinking but by the truth of God, so that which we value is not what the world values but what God values, so that we do not live the ways of the world, but rather we live the ways of God. And the more we grow spiritually, the more we move beyond the world's ways of thinking and what the world values and the world's ways of doing things. And in doing so, we'll become God's partners. We'll become God's partners in doing God's work in the world. We'll become God's partners in creating and bringing the kingdom into reality on earth. We'll be what Jesus says in Matthew 5:13 when he says, we'll be the salt of the earth. We'll be like the light of the world. We'll be like a city that is set upon the hill. We will be demonstrating a different way, an alternate way of living. We will be offering the world an alternative to the chaotic way that merit-based living and anxiety-driven living creates. We'll become God's partners. But being out of step with the world's ways, living by different truths and by different values, will bring some predictable responses, reactions to us. The more we live this way, the more we'll be viewed as strange and odd. The more people will try to pressure us to change our thinking so that we will think like them and we'll believe what they believe and we'll look like them. They will view us as a threat, and so they'll criticize and find fault with how we think and what we believe. And they'll demean us and devalue us, not just our thinking, but who we are as individuals. And ultimately, we will experience rejection. And Jesus, again, in the Sermon on the Mount, said that is a normal reality. In verse 11, he says, blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Jesus is saying, you'll be in good company. For any time someone moves into learning the truths of God and living out of the values of God and living the ways of God, they will be out of step with the world, and they will receive that kind of rejection, that kind of attack, that kind of ridicule, that kind of devaluing and demeaning. So this journey, this spiritual transformation, can be a lonely journey. This kind of ridicule, this kind of rejection, this kind of pressure to conform touches all of our own needs. The need to be loved, the need to be valued, the need to be viewed as competent and able, the need to be safe. And so we need to create for this journey a spiritual community, a circle of spiritual friends such as you've had on this journey, with whom we share our journey and to whom we turn to for our support. We find in this spiritual community a safe place to belong because they value who we are and they value what we can do and they value this journey that we are on because they too are on that journey. And so I trust that you will continue with this group of spiritual friends, continue to meet to study in order to learn God's truths and then process what you are learning and apply and personalize it so that the truth that you are learning, the new understanding that you are gaining will lead you to the new insights into yourself where the Spirit of God can work to bring transformation and change in your heart and in your mind. For it is as that transformation takes place that the true self is released and we are able to live as God's partners in the world. Well, I would invite you to follow me as I continue to offer these kinds of studies. Follow me on Facebook at Pastor Steve Langford or on my webpage, PastorSteveLangford.com, or again on this YouTube channel, Pastor Steve Langford, because there will be additional studies related to my books, and I trust that you will follow those and study those as well. And if you have found benefit from, if you found this study to be valuable and meaningful to you, I would welcome your financial support as I produce these kind of studies, as I write these kind of books, with the objective of enriching your spiritual life. If you would like to contribute to this ministry and support my ministry financially, simply communicate with me at Pastor Steve Langford, D-M-I-N, at gmail.com. Pastor Steve Langford, D-M-I-N, at gmail.com. Until then, I pray for you the peace of Christ as you continue this journey of moving from, into, by the work of the Spirit and the renewing of your mind. The peace of Christ be with you.